Hello, Ravio Geeks. Welcome to Wednesday Ramblings. Life has been pretty chaotic lately, so I don't have time for a very long video this week. So I decided I'm going to talk about a board game I recently purchased called Marvel Remix. Now, this is based off a game called Forbidden Realms, I think it is. I don't know what I could have swore it was on the box, but there it is, Fantasy Realms. And that is a game in which everyone has approximately the same amount of cards in their hand, but they need to pair their cards up with specific other cards in order to earn the most points. Now, in this game, in order to even earn points, you have to have at least one supervillain, and then either a hero or ally. You can have multiple heroes, a hero and an ally, but you have to have at least one, or you'll score nothing. Now, every card basically has its own base value, but a lot of cards can increase with various other factors in play. So I have a few cards out that I'm going to pull up to show you. So here you can see Mjolnir, and Mjolnir is worth 10 points, but is worth nothing unless it's paired with a character who has the worthy card, or is paired with a hero or ally with this symbol right down here, which stands for worthy. And there's various characters that can apply to, such as Thor Odinson, Captain America, as well as Jane Foster, who gets extra points if she's paired alongside Thor Odinson. Now, some characters, like Thor Odinson, can actually become a more powerful version of themselves. In this case, he becomes the God of Thunder if he meets the criteria on the bottom of his card. In this case, he would need to either possess Mjolnir or be paired with two allies, such as Jane Foster, of course, and then any other ally. You could pair him with Moira McTaggart, who shouldn't be an ally based off the current storyline. She's actually a major X-Men villain now. But in this game, she is a ally who helps the X-Men. Speaking of the X-Men, there are a few characters in there, and I really like what some of them do. Like Cyclops, not worth many points on his own, only worth 4, but if you pair him up with other characters that have the mutant symbol, and that's not just allies and heroes, that also applies to some of the villains, such as Juggernaut. He gains additional points. Now, one thing to note about this is, though you do have to have a hero and or ally as well as a villain, it's not about beating the villain. This game is more like you're trying to create a better storyline. So certain villains don't go well with others, or I should say with other cards. For example, the Sentinels. They're worth 12 points, but you lose 20 if they are not paired with at least 2 mutants. So if you don't have any of the X-Men type characters and your villain is the Sentinels and say Thor and then a few other cards, you're going to lose points for the Sentinel cards because the Sentinels don't really mesh with Thor that well. So you're going to want to make sure that you adjust what heroes and villains you have. Now, on your turn, you have one of 3 options. You can either draw one of the cards blindly from the deck, which is always going to be the first player's move. And then you place one of the cards down in front of you. You discard any card from your hand, either the one you drew or one that you already had in your hand. Once 10 cards have been discarded, that immediately triggers the end of the game. So you can either trigger from the Remix deck or the Supervillain deck, which is a completely different deck. So that's how, like, if you have a villain card that's not worth anything to you, you can always just draw a different one and get rid of this one. And then potentially later on bring it back into your hand if you suddenly start getting mutants. Now, another few characters I wanted to mention. Like I mentioned, Cyclops gains points for every mutant in play to kind of symbolize his leadership among the X-Men. Captain America is also a leader-type character, but he gets 2 points for every hero in play. So that's how his works. Spider-Man he only gains 5 extra points, so it's not a lot if there is a location with the urban symbol in it. So some of the locations in the game will help you along the way. For example, Krakoa, the living island, actually gains you 5 points for every mutant you have, but it's useless for Spider-Man. It's not urban. He can't swing around. However, he can use his webbing on the runaway train, which is worth nothing normally, but is worth points for every fist as well as every tech symbol. And those do not have to be on the same card. They can be on different cards. For example, Shadowcat here, as well as here we go. Thor. She has a tech symbol. He has a attack symbol or fist. Strength, I think, is what it represents. So runaway train would be worth 8 based off that. Rogue has a unique ability to kind of play off of her ability to steal other characters' powers. She has no base power of her own, but you could choose one of your other heroes. She will gain their amount of points as well as one of the tags in their hand. And the tags are these symbols up here, like strength and agility. So almost every card, or well, I should say quite a few cards, like Krakoa does it, but a lot of cards have different symbols. And another example of how you might want to pair characters up is Lockheed is only worth 5 points on his own, but if you pair him with Shadowcat, he's now worth 12. Now, I wanted to also go through a few of the supervillains. One of the ones I like, he's not worth many points compared to a lot of the others, but there's the Taskmaster, who, if he is in your hand, is going to blank all the maneuvers in your hand, such as this card, Find Higher Ground. This is worth 10 points for every flight and range tag that you have. So you can rack up a lot of points with this, but Taskmaster is going to knock out all of the maneuvers in your hand. So you want to make sure, is he worth it if this is in your hand and it's going to score you points? Juggernaut, to show how he just does so much damage everywhere, he will blank one location. And blanking means that it removes all points as well as symbols from the card. So in this case, Runaway Train, no matter how many of the strength and tech cards are in play, if Juggernaut is your villain and this is your only location, it's worth nothing. And it would also block Spider-Man from getting those 5 points for being in an urban zone, because it would no longer be considered to have the urban tag. Kingpin is a character who's worth 13 points, and but he's worth nothing if you don't have a location with the urban tag. So, Runaway Train, he's worth 13 points. But if you don't have any locations, or you have a location like Krakoa, which does not have the urban tag, I can't find that card for some reason. Been tossing them aside, not expecting to pull it back out. There it is. No urban, so Kingpin's worth nothing on Krakoa. Killmonger actually starts out with negative points, so you don't want him in your hand unless you have a few with the Wakanda symbol. So he's good paired with like Black Panther, the Dora Milaje, a few of the other. I'm not super familiar with Black Panther or the comics, so I don't remember what the other cards are. But you can make a decent amount of points if you pair him with those. Selene is unique in that she will blank any one hero or ally in your hand. She has the highest base points in the game, but she loses some depending on which character you blank. So you're going to want to have at least one low-value character in play. Because if you only have one, say you only have one ally and no heroes, you can't score any points because it's now blank, so it's essentially not even an ally. But even if you did, well, I mean, theoretically, she would also lose some points, but you just can't win in this situation. You have to have at least two heroes or two allies, or a hero and an ally with Celine. One thing I thought was weird is that I mentioned how it's like you're actually creating storylines. So the Sentinels don't work if you're not paired with mutants. Killmonger needs to be paired with Black Panther stuff to be worth anything. The leader is actually the opposite in many regards. He actually loses points if paired with other characters with the gamma symbol, which means he loses points if he's up against his primary villain in the comics, the Hulk. I thought that was a weird choice to make. Another very weird choice is that every single member of the original X-Men is in the game, with the exception of Iceman. Even Angel is in the game for some reason, but not Iceman. I thought that sucked. Um, Sadly, none of the Fantastic Four are in it. That also means no Doctor Doom. So that's a big disappointment. And the last thing I wanted to go into is one of the strangest choices for me is not only the inclusion of Sauron, who is not really a major character in Marvel Comics, but he is also the supervillain capable of earning the most amount of points. Now, Kang can earn a lot if you have a bunch of different symbols, but Sauron can actually earn more because he gets +7 for each flight and each range card. So you're not guaranteed to win with him because there are other cards that can pair up to do earn massive amount of points, but Sauron himself can earn a ton, more than any of the other villains. That's another strange choice. But I do enjoy the game. It's a much simpler version of Red Rising, which I really like. Red Rising is also inspired by Fantasy Realms, but it's got a lot more going on. I've never played Fantasy Realms, but I believe this game is much more similar to it than Red Rising, which also includes a board with kind of different scoring mechanics that aren't specifically tied to your cards. I love that game, as well as the series, the book series. Um, but Marvel Remix isn't bad. My first play of the game did not impress me, but a few more tries and I did enjoy it. Well, that's going to do it for this week's Wednesday Ramblings. This actually went a little longer than I expected, but I hope this appealed to you, and you should check it out, or Fantasy Realms, or Red Rising, any of the above. So please leave a comment and like and subscribe, and I'm going to get going, everyone. I'm Ravi O'Leaf, and I am Ravi O'Leaving.